Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming this evening and for being here with us. I'm hoping you are in the right place because we're here to talk about pre-kindergarten tonight. This is a meeting of the Hilltop Early Childhood Partnership Task Force Work Group Community Meeting. We held one community meeting previously, and we've had a summit to learn all about pre-K, and tonight we just want to get your thoughts about how we expand high-quality pre-kindergarten in the Hilltop community. You may or may not know the mayor's charge is for our department to make sure that we double the enrollment of children in high-quality pre-K in this neighborhood. So I have a big job to get done by 2020, and I need all of your help to help me get there so we have more children enrolled in pre-K. I notice there are a number of providers here. I don't have to tell you about the importance of pre-K, but we want to make sure that every child in this neighborhood has the advantage of high-quality pre-K. So we'll go ahead and get started. Our facilitators tonight are John Tesloff and Mike Curtin.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank all of you for your attendance this evening and your commitment to this great cause. There's some serendipity in the room tonight, and serendipity is something you couldn't expect, but it just kind of goes with what you're trying to achieve, that a happy accident, if you will, and we're in this nice air-conditioned room while it's 91 degrees out, and I was looking at this board and reading. I don't know if you can read it because it's in light orange, but saying the mission of this space for young people is to enable all young people, especially those who need us the most, to reach their full potential as productive, caring, and responsible citizens. I don't know what could be more serendipitous than that. That is why we're here. It's why you're here. As Rhonda Johnson, the mayor's education czar, told us, it's her job to lead the effort at City Hall for the mayor and for all the citizens of Columbus to slowly but surely, hopefully a little bit more than slowly, but progressively to move as many 4-year-olds and eventually 3-year-olds as possible into pre-K because of what we've learned in recent years about the lost opportunity for those children who don't get that early nourishment. A lot of us are spoiled. I'm spoiled by good graces in that my 4 grandchildren are all beneficiaries of pre-K. And as Councilwoman Brown said when we had our summit in this room just a couple weeks ago, you know, what I'm blessed to have and what she's blessed to have, we should be working together to make sure all kids have. And if you were here for Dr. Laura Justice's presentation at our summit, I mean, the information couldn't be more powerful about the infant brain from birth to age 6 and it being like a sponge, and if not fully nourished in those first 6 years, how those synapses begin dying off and those neural connections are never made, and the full potential that the board speaks to us tonight about is not realized. So this is a great cause, and it's so wonderful to be connected to such a great cause and to be a cog in this machine we hope we're building to develop a model, to develop a prototype on the Hilltop that can be replicated throughout the city year by year by year until we make sure all kids get what my kids and grandkids have had the blessings of having, and so many of our kids and grandkids have had the blessing of having. So with that, hopefully, you know, capturing the spirit of what we're all here to do, we can move into, with our glasses on, John, our prompts for trying to get a discussion so that you can help us develop these recommendations for how we can double the number of children in pre-K on the Hilltop between now and 2020 so that can be replicated citywide. And I know I'm repeating something that was stated in previous meetings, but why the Hilltop? Because we have fewer kids on a per 1,000 basis, fewer kids on the Hilltop participating in pre-K than anywhere else in the city. And so this is the ideal place to begin fixing that problem and setting an example that hopefully years down the road we can look back with and say, you know what, we accomplished some great things for our kids, grandkids, and generations to come. So, John, I'm going to hand the first slide to you, and let's kick off our discussion.
So, in a lot of the conversations we've had so far, particularly about barriers, one of the themes that's come up is how difficult it can be to reach people, to reach parents of young kids on the Hilltop. We've had a lot of chance to think about this, and this is really our opportunity to kind of hash that out and do some brainstorming, give the city folks some ideas to potentially take back to the mayor. So I want to open it up to you folks. What ideas do you have for how we can reach some of those folks on the Hilltop that maybe are pretty hard to reach?
My first question is, what's your goal as far as numbers? Did you hear me?
Matt, correct me if this is wrong, but only about 400 of approximately 2,000 Hilltop 4-year-olds are currently in a quality early learning program, and so we want to double that number by 2020, in 3 years from now. There are many, many barriers, and some of these were mentioned at our first community forum a month ago at the Veritas Church, which doubles as the Hilltop Preschool. It'd be interesting to hear perspectives on perhaps what people think the most difficult barrier is of all the barriers that have been identified or that you've thought about. If we had to tackle the most significant barrier for starters, what would it be? Back there and then here.
I would say undocumented. It would be undocumented families that live in the community, because there's a lot of Latino families that live in this community that are not documented, and they're fearful of what will happen to them if they do try to do something like this.
I would say trust is an issue, especially when, with the news and a lot of things that are going on inside of child care that aren't necessarily quality, with incidents with abuse and things happening to children. I feel like me growing up on the Hilltop area and working in the community, trust and safety is like a big issue. If they send their kids, are they going to be safe? Some parents feel like they're safer at home. So just building that relationship, but that's the biggest thing I believe in the Hilltop area is trust and safety. If they send their kids, do they have a safe route? And I know like last week they did the neighborhood pride and we talked about walkability. How safe is it to walk? It's not very safe in some areas on the Hilltop to walk. And for families who are sending their children to school, most of them don't have cars. So sending them to school, sending them to child care, is it going to be safe? Are they going to run into issues along the way? So I feel like for me personally, that's the two biggest ones.
If I could ask a follow-up question to the lady that talked about undocumented families, and then I think you have another point to make, it looks like. These children of perhaps undocumented families are required at the age of kindergarten or first grade, they're required by law to begin school. So is what you're saying that, I would think that the problem at that point would still be a problem. No?
Because for children to enroll, they have to enroll in school. So the laws are different when it comes to a child enrolling in school. But for 4-year-olds, because the parents are going through ODJFS most of the time,
Okay.
they don't have the same requirement. Now, if pre-K can fall under the umbrella of like ODE, how they're, right, they're in the schools, and like my center is in a school, and our students don't have the same rights that the students of the school have. They have to go through ODJFS's requirements, which is the enrollment form, the medical form, if they can get Title 20, the Title 20, and most of them are fearful. And touching on what she said, transportation is a huge issue. Columbus Public and Southwest will transport children that are 4 years old if only they have an older sibling going to that center, which is not fair or right, because we have kids. I have about 4 families who want to enroll their students right now into my center, but because transportation is an issue, they cannot enroll because Southwest, because they live technically in Southwest City Schools, will not allow them to get on the bus because they don't have an older sibling.
So let's hold proximity and transportation just for a moment and go back to the undocumented issue. Is there a solution in your view that we can be talking about?
Personally, I think for ODJF because I know they've been working together to try to combat some of the issues of streamlining things. So if they could somehow include or lump in pre-K for under ODE's requirements instead of ODJFS's, and there be a cutoff that's different for 4-year-olds, so that the initiatives, not just of our mayor, our governor as well, and the president, despite who he is, to have those 4-year-olds included in what the school requires for a student who's a 5-year-old going to school. If the 4-year-old can have the same rights as a 5-year-old, it would help.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
I would like to touch briefly on the undocumented piece, and just even starting off with information that's available in Spanish or in Somali is a big start, because it's an invitation to the families that speak that language. I know in my personal walk, I am constantly getting phone calls for friends that are trying to enroll their child somewhere and they don't speak English, so I'm doing that translating for them. But having that available at these sites or at the respective locations is a big jump, because that's like an invitation. Whether or not someone's undocumented or documented, they know that their child has rights in most cases. So if they have the invitation to be able to defend their child in school or receive that information because they understand the material being given to them, is a huge start.
Thank you very much.
So do you work at the preschool?
No, I work with Celebrate One. I'm the program coordinator.
Yeah.
Transportation. When we had our summit here a couple weeks ago, Ernest Perry, in talking about his experience in Allentown, talked about how they built a beautiful facility far away from the catchment area they were trying to service. And one of the biggest lessons learned, he said it took 6 years to learn it when they were not getting kids at this brand new beautiful facility, was because of the transportation issue. It was just too darn far away. So it seems like an obvious thing, but you can miss it. So other thoughts on transportation and proximity? What is too far away? What's not too far away? The Hilltop's a big area, and we talk about doubling the number of kids participating in pre-K in the Hilltop. What do you think about in terms of what's facilities that would be too far away? What is a reasonable distance to travel?
ODE and Southwest both set the parameters as to what would be considered, as in their words, inconvenient, so to speak. They'll tell you. So like ODE or Columbus City, when you send in out a transportation form, and probably most people in here don't have to do this, but because I work where I work, we do this every day. And so if I send them a form saying this child lives here, they'll either tell me it's too far away for them to travel, or they'll say, okay, we can get them on the bus, or we can't because they don't have an older sibling. So they have their parameters already set. It's just a point of getting them to agree to taking 4-year-olds to the school.
But in your experience, are people's perceptions, parents' perceptions of what's reasonable line up with ODE's rules on that or not?
Well, the parents that we've had, like the 4 parents that I was telling you about, it's reasonable because it's within where Southwest picks up currently other students that we have that go to the school. They pick up students and bring them to the school every day. And my school's just next street over. So it's not unreasonable. Columbus Public, they pick up kids every day. We have a little girl who rides Columbus City school buses, but because she has an older sibling, they allow her to get on. They live 2 or 3 miles away from the school.
Is that to go to the preschool
Inside the school building.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Over here.
So as a mom of little kids, I would say half a mile would be the max that I would walk my kid to school with other little kids in tow. So half a mile radius is kind of what I was looking in for my preschool.
Half a mile's a pretty good walk for pre-K, right?
I actually have a question kind of related to location. Are you guys looking into locations beforehand, before you start implementing child cares? Are you focused on building other child cares or helping other people start their own to be quality child cares? So I know one of the things, like with my church that I go to is right across from John Burroughs. In that area and talking to people, there's really no child care over there really at all. I know we're talking about quality child care, but there's not anything over there. And so like she was saying, half a mile is probably a good proximity for people that live over there, because a lot of them have more than one child. And so if you're walking or if you have transportation issues, it's the closest thing. So are you guys looking at locations, specific locations? And I know you're talking about too far. If I was in that area, like I know the Y is close, but that's probably too far to go if you don't have a car. So yeah, that's my question for that.
Matt and Jane and Rhonda can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have pre-existing parameters on that. I think we're here to get your input on what those parameters should be, and recommendations that will go to the mayor will be those that you tell us ought to go to the mayor.
Okay, so to be honest, there are quality centers in the area. The problem is it costs so much for us to become star rated that a lot of people, they just step back away from it because the income is just not there for us to be 3 and 4 stars unless you have some other income coming in. So for instance, I was on Sullivan, 2 stars. We had to move. The area was so bad. My parents were uncomfortable walking in, coming in on Sullivan. So we moved over to Vaughn. With us being on Vaughn, it was a little bit easier, but even to be a higher rating, it takes money. And it's not enough from Title 20 for us to be jumping to 3, 4, and 5 stars. We have to pay these teachers. I can't get a lot of teachers because I don't offer insurance. We don't offer insurance because I can't afford it. It's just, you know, it's a thin line. So until we start getting some extra money, I mean some money that counts, not, oh, we're going to give you 20%. 20% doesn't help us at all. So until I partnered with CDC and OSU to bring in some extra income, there was no way we would have got 3 and 4 stars. So in that area, nobody, I mean, in the morning, even my staff, I have to come in at 6. They're scared to walk in by themselves. So I'm at work from 6 to 6. So it's...
No, where I teach, so and at the center I saw that as right horizon. So they don't accept Title 20 from their peers to pay it, and it's a great center, but you know, how do you get to a place where someone's trying to start their own in communities like that, where you can't just come out of pocket and there are resources for them to build those quality child care. And I've been at other ones, and I know that's an issue too, so I guess that's the bigger issue right now, is getting those quality child cares, but how do we fund those to be quality child care? It's easy to open one, but it's not.
It's not.
As far as like background check and things like that, I've known other people, it's easy to get one started, but to have a really good one that's maintained, that has quality teachers, that gives the children exactly what they need. I guess the financial
we just love, I love that we partnered with CDC, so I had some additional funding. I put it into the teachers. We got OSU, I put into the teachers. One of my teachers is here, she'll tell you, like, I can't afford to pay her what she deserves to be paid. With some of the issues that we have in the classrooms, I can't afford to pay. Do I want to pay her more? But I need to meet payroll twice a month. If that additional income isn't there, I can't hit it. So, you know, it's something that all of us, I think, struggle with as providers. If the income's not there for higher quality, how do we get there?
So if we were going to, if this group ends up, I'm sure we will end up making recommendations on the funding issue. How could you help us think about how to quantify that? You know, are you anywhere near making a go of it? You know, what would you need to be to make it to 3 stars, that kind of thing? Because it's surely a theme will be we need more money, but how could we make that more specific?
I mean, I'm a smaller center. You know, we work in conjunction, and we're totally different centers. I don't nowhere near make it, so I couldn't say, hey, I just need $5,000 and that's going to be fine. That'll help out. You can't really put a number on it, honestly. We can come up with a budget and give it some time. I'm sure we can put that together, you know, to kind of work numbers, but I don't think we could just specify a dollar amount.
I think one of our challenges is that early care and education has never made it to the worthy wage conversation. So, and I think that a good thing about Step Up is that it helps level the playing field. However, it levels it in terms of expectations and requirements for qualified teachers. However, a qualified teacher who's making $12 an hour at a child care center isn't making a worthy wage for the education that that person has achieved.
We do have a little bit of a horse and cart issue here. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first step here is how do we get over the barrier of getting kids into existing funded slots. Okay, the funding model needs to be determined later. Right now we have funded slots that aren't filled. And so step number one, the horse before the cart, will be recommendations we can make to the mayor's office to do the outreach necessary to reach those parents and families, to persuade them of the importance of pre-K, to get them in, first of all, the empty funded slots we have, and then as we fill those up, figure out how we're going to make recommendations. And that's, quite frankly, the funding question is not for this working group. That's going to be for down the road. Our charge is to recommend to the mayor, and again, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, prior to that, solving that funding Rubik's Cube, how we reach families, how we do the grassroots networking and art of persuasion to get kids into the existing slots that we have. Back in the back.
One of the things, I must be missing a point on something here because the slots are there. You have all these child care centers here on the west side. So there's children that can fill these slots. I feel the biggest problem is to step up the quality. There has to be something, there's something going on there why this preschool problem up here on the west side is not being successful. And I really think it has to do with step up the quality.
We have opportunities for young children to go to school, but they're not going. We have empty seats.
You say there's empty seats, but there isn't. There's all these child care centers around here. Where we have all these preschool children in these child care centers, and you keep repeating there's empty seats. There's not empty seats.
I have empty seats.
There
Why? What's the question? Why do you have empty seats?
That's a great question. I think the parents, aren't very trusting. I think they're also very transient. So it's hard for us to figure out how to keep them, how they're worried about how to make ends meet, not whether their kids should go to school. So how do we meet them in the middle to let them know that we're here to help?
So perhaps what I hear you saying, I just want to clarify because I think you.
The only reason why I'm having problems with this is because we ran a center up here on this west side, right down the street for over 60 years. We never had empty slots. Never. We didn't really go through the step up to quality. We did our own preschool program. But I know for a fact there's many centers around here that have preschool children, and they have over 20. So that's why I'm like, am I missing a point here?
I think there are 2 points, is what I believe I hear us saying, which you had outlined, and those 2 points need to meet your point, I believe.
We have a lady up here.
My name is Jamila. I have a home child care through the state off of Safford, so it's on the west side. But I have small children. I actually temporarily closed it for the time being because I just got my real estate license. But anyways, I, for one, probably will, as a parent of a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, and 2-year-old, if I want to enroll them into a child care, I do want to enroll them into star-rated programs. For one, that shows that they are more skilled. They're more into the development of the child. So I feel like if it's empty slots, I don't know, I'm not saying you're not a good center or anything, but me as a parent, I'm looking for those stars. I'm looking, because that is me, like, okay, they have a knowledge of a child, the development. So that's what I would think. I mean, and then I know the west side, just living off on this side, it should be a lot of cleaning up, because it's a lot of like just things out in the open that shouldn't be, that can affect the schools. Like, for instance, I'm not going to take my kid to a center off of Sullivan. For one, I see prostitutes walking up and down the street. So, yeah, that's just out the question. That's me personally. So I think star-rated programs, me as a parent, I will enroll my child into, because there's more knowledge behind those stars.
But you're also in the field too, so you know what star ratings are. Most of our parents, even my parents, but talking about it all the time, they don't know. Like they literally talk about it all the time. You're in the field, so you know. So what about our parents that don't have a job, don't have a cell phone, at home all day, they walk their kids down to John Burroughs and they walk back home. All they see is the center that's right there. They don't know if it's star rated or not. They have no clue. So, me and you might know, but if you walk outside and ask a parent, what's that fucking quality? I bet you 9 out of 10 don't know. They just don't know what it is. So, they don't know to select a star rated.
As she was talking, I thought of a point, because I grew up on the Hilltop, and like I said, I taught as well, and my church is located on Sullivan, so we see that we work with the prostitutes and getting them off the streets. And so one of the things that I've noticed about a lot of the parents over there, and that one of the things we talked about with the mayor at the community meeting last week, is that a lot of people in the Hilltop are just very complacent. They're very complacent, and if you go back to way back then, when child care wasn't really focused, no one really thought about child care. It wasn't really important to people. You know, now a lot of us are educators, or we teach and things like that. It's probably always been important to us, but a lot of people, it hasn't really been important, and it hasn't been focused like it is now. And so there are some people who are still living in that time where, like, I can do this with my own child. You know, they may not know anything about, educating their children and getting them prepared for kindergarten, but they think that I can do this at home. My kids can do it at home. I don't need to send them anywhere. I don't need to give them these things. They don't realize what their kids are actually missing out on. So even advertising that and being out there, being more relevant in the community and letting parents know, that this is important. Because I've worked with children that haven't gone to child care, and the kids that have, and the difference, like you said, it's a huge difference. So just being relevant in the community and, encouraging parents, I know that's one of the things our church is focused on, is just getting out in the community and building those relationships. And I feel like that's important too, especially even if they don't know about the star quality, if they have a relationship with you, if you're out there. And I know it's a scary thing because it's not safe. So we have like this double, like almost like we're trying to meet in the middle. Like we want to do all these things, but then again, it's not safe. And like she was saying that, her staff they're scared to go over there. So how do you get out there in the community and build relationships if the community is not safe?
I think there's one point that's important to make about the star ratings, and that is, it's like the old serenity prayer that we learned, when you were young, about things we can control. Worry about the things you can control. Don't worry about the things you can't control, and try to know the difference between. Star ratings are coming. I mean, they're already there. And we don't control the star ratings. The state is saying that unless you meet, a certain number of stars by X date, Y date, you're not going to get funded. And maybe the state will change it, maybe they won't. But right now, that's the imperative, and we're not going to change it. The task force isn't going to change it. The mayor can't change it. That's coming down from the state. What we can do in terms of what we can control is what efforts can we make in our community, the Hilltop, what efforts can we make to persuade as many parents as possible to get their 4-year-olds into a pre-K program. That's what we hopefully can make a meaningful difference on. Now, if you want to lobby the legislature, if you want to lobby the governor's office, you want to get involved in state politics, maybe those star ratings and the timing for star ratings will change at some point, but nobody in this room has anything to do with the star rating guidelines. What we're focused on relentlessly is how do we work in the Hilltop to reach as many parents as possible to get those kids into the slots that we have that are funded or that will be funded. So, I mean, we can work, and that's a job for another task force right after this task force, to figure out different funding models and how can we, get more money in the pipeline for pre-K slots. But right now, it's how can we get over that barrier of parents on the Hilltop not sending their kids to pre-K.
I think it can help with promoting your centers, maybe sending out letters to parents or like having and putting it on Facebook to where like people on the west side, they're seeing that and they're becoming involved, but maybe just kind of advertising and marketing your individual center, maybe by mail or business cards or maybe door knocking or, I don't know, you can't pinpoint who has kids, or maybe you can by what's outside of the home, or, maybe just kind of like just marketing your center, I would think, to kind of let parents aware of the star ratings or, hey, pre-K slots are open. Like my daughter, she goes to Head Start.
Just getting over that knowledge barrier.
Yeah.
That too many parents just don't have the knowledge
of the star rating programs, right. And I feel like if they don't have knowledge of it, then maybe inside the centers it can be pamphlets, brochures of it, and that can be passing out to parents, passing on to your friends and family members that, are interested in pre-K for their children, and just kind of like word of mouth, just marketing and just kind of pushing it out there to existing customers, existing, caregivers, and, just passing it on.
There are a lot of people, to your point, there are a lot of people in this room who have a lot of experience with pre-K. Can you think of stories, anecdotes where you had a reluctant parent at one point, but then you were able to turn that parent from a reluctant parent to a participating parent, and what it was that got the job done? I mean, what it was to finally turn that key?
My response is not to answer that question, I'm sorry. But I wanted to point out that my experience in the Hilltop is that there is a disconnect between preschool and the third grade reading guarantee. And I'll say 5 years into the third grade reading guarantee, I now have families that understand the consequences of not meeting 3GRG, but there still seems to be a disconnect between the school age and that preschool. So maybe our focus needs to be tying students or children's involvement in pre-K and how that might positively impact 3GRG, because third grade reading guarantee is an ongoing conversation of schools in the Hilltop area.
We did visit a center in Chicago called Chicago Commons, and they have a program where the preschool children, in order to get to draw on the preschool children, they have a job program. So the parents are coming into the building for more than just pre-K. So if we can pull these parents in for more than just pre-K, because it may not be important to them then, but if we can get some jobs where they feel like, okay, this is what I need to be doing, I need somewhere for my child to go, I need them to be safe, then we can kind of build that in to say, hey, we really need to have your child in this pre-K program. But a lot of people are just sitting at home. So if you're just sitting at home and you live 2 miles, the transportation is huge. But when you say, hey, you finish this program, we can get you a job in the city, I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk 2 miles with a stroller. We bought strollers. But it has to be some type of initiative for the parents to do a little bit better and not just their kid, because we've been brought up, I'm from Champion and Livingston. You don't go to school until you go to school. And that's just the way we was raised. So if we can kind of bring something else into it that's more for the parent, then they'll start looking at their children a little bit different. Because there's no goals. There's no parent goals.
A couple points that I'd like to make to the young lady over here. She's correct when she talks about the community and the crime, because we held an event at our school to try to promote and get more students to come. And so we had an open house and we allowed people to come in. And one of the biggest concerns that the people had was the area. And I can confirm this because one night when the principal of the school building was there in the evening, she stood and watched a drug deal go down right next door to the school. The guy had a gun and we had to call the police because it happened right there next to the school building. So I think if there's an initiative similar to how Coleman did in the Linden area, where they went in and cleaned it up and started making it more presentable, that will make parents more secure in taking their kids to a facility where it may or may not be safe in their mind. We have security alarms on our buildings. The people cannot get in the building without being buzzed in. We have cameras throughout the building. But that still did not make the parents feel any more secure because of the crime. Even with the fire department, the heliport for the police station right there, that meant nothing to the parents because of the area and the crime. The other thing, while she's talking about the parents having some type of incentive, so to speak, to bring their child, the thing that we have to look at is if these parents aren't working and they don't have a job during the day, they can't qualify for ODJFS. That ain't happening. So they can't afford to bring their child to the center. So until we can get over the hump, and I know you said it's for another task force, but one of the major problems is these parents don't have jobs. And if they don't have jobs, they are not qualified to bring their child to a center unless we go through the ODE way where at 4 years old, you're required to have your child in school like a 5-year-old.
So to answer your question, what have we done? I don't know if you can hear me. As a former director, one of the things that I did do, I took a holistic approach to early care and education, and I went out and when I saw parents who had 4-year-old kids or 3-year-old kids, preschool age children, I went and asked them, well, why are they at home? And then we had conversation, we built relationships. And so when they were bringing their children into my program or inquiring about the program, I set goals with them also, whether it was getting a job to qualify for Title 20. And a lot of them did not necessarily know that they could qualify for Title 20. So not just getting a job, but either GED classes or enrolling in college themselves. Some did that, and just taking that extra step. Nope, that's not something that's necessary for a child to go to school, but school is only going to be as important to that child as it is to that parent. So make it an important for them, and having them set goals is how I was successful with maintaining full enrollment. Now, it was a small center, but you have to take that extra step, go that extra mile to include them also. And also in making that connection, one of the things that I will always say is kindergarten is not the same kindergarten that we went to as parents. And so making that connection beyond just preschool, beyond just getting them ready for kindergarten, but once they get into the 3rd grade, or once they get even some of the parents, they were had dropped out of either high school or middle school even. So making them realize that, hey, just because your school experience was X, Y, and Z, it does not have to be the same way for your child. So it's goal setting, and it's taking that extra step to build relationship.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Methods of reaching parents on the Hilltop that perhaps are more successful than other methods. Door-to-door teams, literature, social media, all of the above, church outreach. There are any number of approaches. From all your experience or your intuition, strategies we should be focusing on first, second, and third?
Well, there needs to be an education component that we've talked about for parents, and so social media is really good at doing little short videos and educating, this is a really good activity you could do with your kid, and this is why it helps them. And if you want to learn more, you can see all these star-rated area, providers in your area or something like that. I think there's an opportunity to educate parents on how they can work with their kids, and then also how they can get them into a preschool using social media too.
Thank you.
Realize, a Hilltop parent, if you form that group, how many people will gravitate to that group, and which can be also leads to, hey, we have pre-K slots open, and to kind of form in that group of Hilltop parents, because people will, join it, and then that would be kind of like a group of parents that you could market like the pre-K open slots to and stuff, and star-rated programs, and letting them know the importance of
I think the library would be a good partnership as well, because I went to a professional development training in Westerville, and one of the things that the Westerville Library did, which has been very successful, and they also partnered with this elementary school there in Westerville, is they created, I don't know how else to call them other than a reading packet, and so the parents came in weekly to these groups, because most of the parents could not read, because they were, a lot of them were Latino families. So they brought the parents in, they taught them how to read with their kids and have that quality time with their child at home. And so every week the parents came back because they got a new packet of books to take home and read with them. And it was a very successful program. And what it did was allow these parents who, one, did not read to their children at home, it helped them prepare their child for pre-K in Westerville, as well as then for kindergarten. And that was just an initiative that they did in Westerville that seemed to be very successful, and it could probably be replicated in this area as well.
Thank you.
Good idea.
If I could jump back just one step to the safety issue, that seems to me to be a real difficult one. When you've got not just the perception of crime, but you got the reality of the crime statistics in the Hilltop to deal with, and people having their treasured 3- and 4-year-olds and thinking about putting them in harm's way. I'm wondering, and I'm going to pose this to Rhonda and Jane and Matt, because they're more steeped in the research than John and I are. We're lay people up here. Columbus is not a leader in pre-K, and so Rhonda and Jane, Matt, and their colleagues in the educational research arena have looked at other cities and other states, and we've been looking at best practices and lessons learned. I'm just curious if anything stands out in terms of the lessons learned from other areas about how the safety issue, the perceptions of crime, perceptions of safety problems have been dealt with elsewhere, if we know much about that or not. Nope.
It's not something that I've seen in the work that we've done addressed.
Okay, that's something we can do some research on, because certainly, when you look at Dayton and Cincinnati and Cleveland, our peer cities in the state, they're struggling with the same issue, trying to get up that mountain of getting more people in pre-K. Neighborhoods they're dealing with have a lot of the similar problems that we have. So we can go to school on that and hopefully learn a bit that's valuable for this task force.
Also, another area that we could probably reach out to, every little boy that I have that's 4 years old plays football on the Hilltop. So you got West Mountain Stars, you got the Cowboys, you got the Rams. All these kids play sports. If you go to a football game on a Saturday, every family has walked their kids to football. So if y'all could maybe reach out to some of these teams.
That's a great point. I see them every weekend at McKinley Field.
When you come down here on the bottom of the hill on a Saturday, it is jam-packed.
Yeah, Rhodes Park.
Everybody participates in sports. So if maybe y'all could reach out to some of these sports teams and say, hey, we would like to sponsor something so we can do some pre-K awareness, it'll be a whole lot easier to reach out to these things.
Hey, that's a great idea. Thank you. Back there.
Yes, just to go back a few steps, not to get anyone off course. I thought it was really important to mention the connection between the pre-K and the third grade guarantee. That's something I'll be starting here soon. I will be the Ready to Read specialist at the Hilltop Library, and so that was part of me coming here. And I think just to hear about the different things that are going on as a challenge in the community is important and will be impactful for myself. So if anyone would like to connect after this, I think that would be a good piece if we could, start a partnership and parents are knowing that we are even in connection with the library and trying to do things with that, and the impact that it really, really does have on youth once they get into school. Again, like was said earlier, I think parents just fail to realize how important it actually is to start things early, especially with us, we're moving at a faster pace. I took naps in kindergarten. I don't think anybody's really doing that nowadays, and so once they get in there, there are some kids who are really, really far ahead, and then there are some kids who haven't really learned a whole lot. So I think to go back on that piece, that was really, really important. But I will be starting here shortly at the library with Ready to Read to talk about parents understanding the emergent literacy skills and what that is going to mean to kids.
Thank you.
That must be Kathia back there. So I haven't met Kathia, but she is coming to the library. Nice to meet you. Well, I was thinking when Laura was talking that there must be a connection with a lot of parents who have older kids, and so making that connection on the importance of preschool, there might be an opportunity there. So if a parent has somebody who's going through the third grade reading process, but there's some younger ones in the pipeline, that might be a conversation that the schools might have access to. But of course, for those who are having their first kids, that seems to me like that would be a bigger awareness issue and harder to connect with those folks. Yes?
People in the neighborhoods know about this pre-K or where do you make this information? Do they get this information about this stuff if they want to send their kids to school?
That's a great question. That's number one. That's step number one.
Do we knock on doors and pass out paper? Yes. I see your sign all the time. Usually I know you're there. And then you come down on Midland and knock on the door and say, hey, you got a kid need to go to school.
Well, I can tell you, we did that. We did that. We walked down Midland, we walked down
Well, you didn't knock on my door because I was right there, but then.
They knocked on all of our kids, walked down the
I've been there for 50 years. Because I don't have a lot of kids little kids now on Midland. They all grew up. But I've been living here up here for 50 years, and for information to get out for parents and people to know. And where are you going to locate these places? Where are they going to go? How are they going to get there? Of course, I know it's a lot different now than it was 50 years ago, but, where is the center going to be? How are the kids going to get there? Are we going to have transportation? All of this.
We now have our Midland satellite location.
Oh, no, I'm finished. But I will tell people. I told two people in Kroger's Monday morning about the program, and they were pushing kids in strollers.
Well,
I have a question. Is the county playing a role in this at all?
Franklin County government?
Yes, the Jobs and Family Services, as far as getting information out.
Matt?
They are always a good partner of ours. They're working on, they're working on a campaign right now to educate the community about the importance of early learning, so yes. And we do work with them very closely.
The reason why I was asking is because when I was in the field, I communicated a lot with Jobs and Family Services. And there were parents that would come to me wanting their kids in child care. They weren't working. So I would send them over to Jobs and Family Services. They would get them started with a job. They had that, what was it called, Back to Work program. That's a very good start there. And then they were able to put their children in our centers, okay, while they was focusing on trying to get the county was focusing on them, helping them to get a job, and it really did work. Because around here, that's the population. That's where most of our families are coming from. And that's where 90% of my child care, no, 99.9% of my children was recommended through Jobs and Family Services. And we put those parents to work. Some of them, I put them to work at my center. And I had a small center, I had no more than 40 children. But I took on a lot of parents and put them to work until they was able to establish otherwise. I would get them involved with school. Oprah was a good program for my teachers to get them started. But sometimes Oprah kind of fell back on things because once they got their degrees, they wouldn't leave because I couldn't afford to pay them the kind of money once they got their degrees, especially when they got their bachelor's degrees. But at least we was able to encourage them to go to school, okay? And they became the mentors for their children. They're the biggest mentors, the parents are, not us.
Can I put you on the spot, Lisa Boggs, and ask you a question? And the reason that I pick on you is you're kind of at a nexus point between a couple of things we've talked about here. We've talked about getting the word out. How do you reach as many parents as possible, get the word out that we do have slots, persuade them of the importance of pre-K, and get over that safety, that concern about safety. For many of you know Lisa, perhaps most of you know Lisa, but she has spearheaded for many years the National Night Out program in her neighborhood on Ogden and surrounding areas, and she's in frequent, almost constant communication with the police liaison in her area. So you've got the experience with the police, you've got the experience with your neighborhood. Do you have thoughts on ways to bring down this barrier between getting the word out and getting people to get over that concern about safety, or steps we can take to deal with that?
I'm at a loss because our neighborhoods are torn up with dope, and people are not, they're transient, they're going from house to house, there's no stability. I'm just mind boggled as to how that we could get children in early child care because parents are so doped up. It's the truth. The kids are up all night, they're out in the streets, they're not thinking about school the next day. They're not, so we have to get the safety under control, number one. I mean, everybody's spoken about it tonight, but number one is safety because these streets are just torn up. And nobody's going to take their kids, and leave them on Sullivan Avenue with dope dealers, with prostitutes, with just people hanging out, bums hanging out on Sullivan Avenue. Getting robbed, just even regular citizens are now getting robbed. You're right. We're just torn up. So I don't know how, when we don't even have any stability in the neighborhood, we need probably, I'd say, in my opinion, that we need several centers in the area that cover childhood education, safety, maybe have the liaison officers in there. A whole, like a community center. Like a community center in our neighborhoods close by, maybe a few of them, like hubs, where we can get the job. I thought your idea about the job training in one place, it was just, that was an excellent idea.
Could you imagine, half of our kids, they know that their parents are not going to work. So they're throwing a fit. They don't want to stay because they know their mom is going back home.
Right.
And now they're here in this structure, and it takes almost 2 weeks for them to get used to being there. And I got a degree teacher that ain't never even been out west. Right. So now she has 7 behavior problems in the classroom, and she's like, I didn't sign up for this.
Right.
With a co-teacher, so it's a lot.
We need safety. We need maybe some police officers even. I hate to say this, but it's the truth. We need police officers policing the areas where our centers are, where our children are, where the school. I don't know if they probably patrol your area every morning, but we need them also to patrol the centers, the childhood. Yeah.
Well, that message is loud and clear. It's unmistakable. Safety first.
Safety. And housing, stable housing. People don't have enough to pay rent. They're living in garages. People are living. This is real stuff going down here. People are living in garages. They're pooping in buckets. Because I do trash. I'm in the alleys. I see how the folks are living, and they're not thinking about early childhood education. They're thinking about just surviving and getting their dope. There's a lot of families, even grandparents on dope. It's generational. It is generational. We're torn up over here. I just can't even stress how rough it is. There's needles all over the streets, people laying in alleys. It is very, very, we're in a dire situation over here, and I think we've got to get some help cleaning this place up. You guys, everybody needs to advocate for more police officers over here in the Hilltop.
They just start patrolling with the Highlands, because there used to be a hangout spot over there. I'm like, wow, what is this? It's just like, the drug addict over there, like that's where it goes down.
That's what the guy from SWAT told me.
Oh, they're working hard. Yeah, they are. They are. They're definitely. Our police officers are doing a good job, but when one gets busted, two more come back. I mean, they just can't keep up with it. We need more officers over here.
We need to learn who these landlords are. Let me figure these out. That's exactly what I do.
More home ownership, but we can't solve all of this right here. I know we're focused. That's why I just sit here just taking it all in.
Well, one thing we can guarantee you, because you're anything but ambiguous, your message will be included loud and clear in the report to the mayor. It will be. You can count on that. Back there.
See, too, you might consider when you're talking about police officers, they go to a lot of homes where there's a lot of domestic violence, and there's a lot of children there. They should be dropping off literature about this, where they could, and that's a way of reaching a lot of these parents, because they're everywhere up here on the west side, dealing with the crime that we have. So, and they're involved with a lot of these families. That's the way to reach them, is having them leave literature when they go to make an arrest, or just even to talk to the parents, because a lot of times they might not arrest them, but they might talk to them about what's going on.
No disagreement I take with Lisa's point.
I've heard a few people mention going door to door to find kids for your institutions. How well does that work? So I'm seeing some nods and some shaking heads.
It really just depends. When I was on Sullivan, we had 140 kids. I went door to door and it worked.
Okay.
I'm on Vaughn, I'm not as close, so going door to door doesn't work for me right now. So it really just depends on where your location is at. When we were on Sullivan, we were only one of the providers that did a lot of school agers, and we were picking up at almost every school. So going door to door was easy for us because we could service the infants, the toddlers, the preschool, and the school agers. So they didn't have to go to 2 or 3 different spots. They got to go one spot. But with this transportation issue, with us transporting children, since we're in Head Start, we have to have 2 people on the bus. So transportation is out of the question for me. I don't have money to put 2 teachers on the bus to pick up 5 kids. So it makes a huge, it's all these different rules that come into play from different agencies. So we have to listen to licensing, we have to listen to CDC for Head Start, we have to listen to OSU, so those different things come into play. And it just really depends on where the need is at. And I know the huge need out here, they don't have 1 kid. They have 5 or 6. And when they call, they want you to take all 5 or 6 of them. If you can't, they call somewhere else. So that's another huge issue out west. Nobody really has 1 child. And this infant and toddler spot, I don't know anybody else, but if you don't have infant and toddlers, you're probably not going to get that 4-year-old.
Let's assume for the moment, and this is a big assumption, that we can make some progress with the Division of Police. We can make strides on the safety front. And I know that is a big assumption. Let's assume we can begin making progress on that goal. How do we, knowing that the 5-star rating system is staring us in the face and we need to reckon ourselves with it by 2020, how do we promote the importance of quality along with the importance of pre-K itself, but quality pre-K as opposed to just pre-K? I know we've touched on this a little bit with some of you, especially very experienced in early childhood education, but it's there. We have to deal with it. And this lady in the front, touched on the importance of the star ratings that you look toward them, but I sense that maybe a lot of people don't.
Maybe not. I guess so, because I've always done that ever since my oldest was a little baby, because it's some centers that's I feel like if they're not star rated or if they don't have that, you know, like more of a challenge to maintain a good center, they won't care about your child, like at all. Like I had it like for instance, when my child was a baby, my oldest, I guess she was crying, she scratched herself, had a long scratch, and I feel like if you was more attentive, more aware of what a child needed, more knowledgeable in that area, you would have known she was having a tantrum, you would have known to pick her up, and she wouldn't have a scar on her face and she'd bleed. So I'm just I'm very protective of all my children, so I do like pay attention to a star rated, what complaints was against the center. I look it up, but I am still licensed, but I just recently closed my home one because of everything else I got going on right now, but I'm opening back up next year. So it's just, I do pay attention to that because I feel that is important when they're star rated. I mean, I wouldn't say all centers that's not star rated aren't good centers. I just would look at that first because of the education and the knowledge.
Star rating helped us out tremendously. It took us from being a daycare center to an early education center, but I also had support from other agencies. So we joined Caring Communities Birth to 3, where my staff go to training every 6 weeks. That's free. It's hard to say. I know a lot of people like, oh, we're jumping through loops for Step Up to Quality, but it took me from being here to being here. Mm-hmm. So I like to brag about my stars, but when you don't, I had mentors though. So I had someone from Kids Care. We just went through a program through leadership that was just for directors. And we went every Friday. We took the day off. We learned about the trade. You can't, like she said, I'm a stickler about if a kid got a scar and ain't no incident report. I'm going to lose my mind. She'll tell you. Like, but if there's no education piece, so we have one teacher now that y'all just ran a program for the free CDA. These teachers can't afford to pay $1,200 to get a CDA. But now one of my teachers is going through the CDA program that's free through the city. And when I say she come back every Tuesday and Wednesday with different activities, or, oh, I missed this, or what am I doing wrong? It makes a huge difference. But it needs to be a little bit more. We only have one system through the state of Ohio for training, and that's Oakland. Do you know how hard it is to get a teacher in a training for just basic training? You got to wait and sit there and click as soon as it pops up. So we just need some more training for staff that's free.
Or figure out how you're going to pay them overtime because you can't afford to take them.
That's a crucial point. Like saying you got help. You didn't get to where you were to the star rating you're at now by yourself. You got help. And if I'm going to pick on Jane in the back of the room here, because Jane's the founder of the Hilltop preschool, and I think a month ago when we had our first community forum out at the Veritas Church, where the Hilltop preschool is located, this point was made by several people in the audience about that tall hill of getting from where you are to getting to the star-rated level you need to be by 2020. Do we assume, Jane, that there's going to be help, the necessary help for a lot of these providers, early childhood providers who want to get there, but perhaps don't have the means themselves to get there?
Well, I think that would make sense. That would be a recommendation that, A, it's going to be a requirement. B, we have goals set. I mean, that's how we got our stars. We just said we're going to start with 1, and then we weren't satisfied. We're going to go to 2. We weren't satisfied. What's it take to go to 3? We weren't satisfied. And we just moved heaven and earth until we got to 5, because that was a goal that we had set. The director and I had set, the board had set, and with the staff. And so we just were creative in trying to, it's very expensive, and I don't mean money, but I mean it's really expensive to be my friend, because I'm going to say, hey, I need you to help me with this, and I need you to help me with my school and do this, and I need you to help me with my school and do this. And I'm a shameless networker because I love the kids, and we need this. So that's how we got where we were. But not everybody has a Jane in their school, or they may have the desire, but they're working all day long in the school. I happen to not work in that school. I work in other schools. But so it's hard to get out to do the networking. So yes, I would say that it would make sense that if we need to increase the quality or add to the quality in schools, that a mentor, I think I heard you mention that you had a mentor. Laura had a mentor, still has a mentor. Those things are really, really important to journey through, because they'll tell you, I think we showed you the Step Up to Quality notebook for 5 stars, I'm not exaggerating, is this big to document it all. And she's got a school to do, too. So it would make sense that we would recommend some support.
Thank you for
on
that point.
journey.
That's very important.
Who are, I don't want to say ignorant, but just doesn't know what quality looks like, is to give them an example. Because like one of the things that we do is we show that our 4-year-olds are reading by January. Because our students, we don't go all year because we stick to a traditional school schedule so that they're familiarized with the school setting and how a school functions and operates. So by January, our 4-year-olds are reading. They're sounding out words, they're reading, they're doing basic math problems, they're doing all the things that a kindergartner is doing at that age. And so when you bring a parent in during that period of time and show them this is what our 4-year-olds are capable of doing, and they have a 4-year-old, they're going to be more like, well, how do I get involved? We just enrolled a new student today, and the parent came in the room and wanted to see what we were showing the kids, and she was shocked and amazed that her child's going to have an opportunity to read at 4 years old by January. So if they're getting to see this and having the opportunity to come in and witness these things happening, it makes a difference. Because
So you're saying the results speak for themselves and people notice.
Yes, because we're from a society, you're just not going to hear, you have to be shown. We have to see the tangible. And if we don't see the tangible, we're not going to buy into it.
Hey, but you're not from the Hilltop.
My center's on the Hilltop.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
I was going to say, now, you were talking about what your kids are doing. I'm over here on the Hilltop. How am I going to get there?
I'm right here on Midland.
Midland or what?
Right there at the church.
Oh, you right there, sit down?
Mm-hmm.
No, I never knew that, and I'm just right down the street from sit down. This is what I'm talking about. I'm going to find out anything. You would say now, and I'm at walking distance. I see the sign all the time, but I thought it was in Spanish.
Well,
I thought it was in Spanish school there.
It's not. We cater to the Spanish community because we know that they have a need.
I can read the sign when you say I'm having what is it they have up there?
We had an open house.
Oh, no, they were selling stuff here, bazaar. I saw that sign.
That was the church, that wasn't the school.
That was on the fence. But I don't see anything on the fence that tells me you have a daycare there.
It may not, because I don't think we
That's
have.
what I said, I never knew.
But we do have pre-K in there.
So, but then you have to pay, right? Or you got Title 20 or whatever. If I got a job,
And
then I got to pay the town. But this is what I'm trying to find out. Who's supposed to fund all of these pre-K programs? How are you supposed to get there?
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What would help you know more about what's going on?
I don't know. Tell me and give me information how I'm supposed to get there. And look like to me, if you want all these kids to go to pre-K, I shouldn't have to pay.
What forms of communication would work with you?
You know what? The pizza man comes down and roll up the thing and sticks it up there.
You want that visited, okay.
Listen, put her out there.
And I need to know how.
That's what we want, walking door to door.
Well, well, we're joking about that, but some of the examples we've looked at have capitalized on the people in a community to help spread the word. And I think you'd be very effective at that.
I knew that. I was spreading the word.
Yeah.
I got my information from church, but
Point well taken.
I'm over here. I ain't even done nothing about it.
Point well taken.
This lady up here. Ma'am?
I actually have a question for the directors, whoever's the director in here. Do you guys, and I'm not sure if this is a legal matter or whatever, are you guys allowed to call people? Do you guys have call lists? Do you call families? Do you call houses? Do you do follow-up calls for people that you visited in the past to see if they're still interested, if they haven't come?
You get a lot of unanswered phone calls, no return phone calls, numbers no good anymore.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Transiency. Right.
We even try constant contact, pull up the area and send it out. I mean, we sent a lot out. We probably got direct mail. We probably got
I
5, 6
paid
phone
for a
calls.
direct mail that
We
went out
did.
to 500 people that had children under the age of 5 in a zip code radius, and not one response back from 500. We got about 5. Really? And we didn't have a lot.
When we have parents about jobs, we have a lot of parents showing. I'm telling you, if y'all can hit that job market to help as parents, like you said, most of our kids don't have a stable address. So when they lose their swipe card, I can't let them really come because there ain't no telling how long it's going to take for their swipe card to come. So if we could get them just a little bit more stable, just something to look forward to, I think that would really, really help with them saying, hey, maybe my child does need to be in pre-K because I'm putting that bug in your ear every day when I see you. But when they don't know how they're going to eat tomorrow, or when they don't know like where my kids are going to sleep tomorrow, I have 2 homeless families.
So is what you're saying that getting the word out to employers that when they have a new hire from one of our target zip codes, we'd like you to put this information in front of your new hire?
No, what I'm saying is if the preschool program had a program that say, okay, like y'all had this forum today, and y'all want to do enrollment for preschool 4-year-olds. Send something out to these parents about jobs, and they're going to show up, and then you can put that bug in their ear about pre-K.
I got you.
Do you have children at home? Are you not working? We have jobs that are available right now. You can pull every agency out here to offer jobs. The parents are going to come. They want jobs. They really do, but when you got to catch the bus down the street, drop your kids off, get back on the bus, go to work, and then come back, and then they don't even know if they're going to be working tomorrow. It's not enough initiative to get up and get the kids there.
Thank you.
I was thinking, or you could offer, like when you're sending out the brochures, pamphlets, you could offer like a gift card. I bet that comes in. Like a $10 gas gift card or something. Like, huh? They don't check their mail. If you think about it.
They don't check their mail.
No, because these families are living in between meals or where they're going to sleep. So what do they?
If they're on welfare, then they're checking their mail.
Yes, but a lot of the mail is billed, so they're not checking the mailbox.
No point in checking that.
You don't even know where your mail's going.
Back here.
Just a thought that. So last year there was a question about how many of my 5th graders, who are the last group of students at my school, were with us for several years, and about half of my families are with me for 4 to 5 years. So maybe we need to also consider which ones are stable families in the neighborhood because they are staying and living in the neighborhood, and is there a different way that we need to approach that than the transient families that are, I'll say, coming in and out of the schools, because we really do have 2 different living environments going on here, and maybe we need to approach that differently.
Excellent point. Thank you.
Training program, like she was talking about getting jobs that, when you call ODJFS, some of those qualified school trainings, they're not really qualified. We're thinking that these parents are, in a GED class, and we send the information in, and it's not qualified. So maybe if you set up a qualified training for these parents as well and say, hey, we'll give you this training, we'll give you this, this, and this, and at the end you get the certificate, we'll help you find a job, almost like a job readiness program, but you make it for preschool parents, and offer some type of training for them with the, the idea of you're going to come out, your child is in child care, they're stable, they're set, you don't have to move them, you don't have to jump them from here to here. But it has to be a qualified through ODJFS, that they would take that as a training. I think that would be awesome. I mean, because there is parents that want to work and they want to be a part of something. And if you come up with some type of training for them, I think that would help. I mean, even if it's an 8-week program, even if it's a 6-month program, whatever the situation is, I would be able to give them that solid ground to understand what, pre-K is.
Thank you. This lady here.
And I'm sorry that I came late. I had another important meeting, so I don't know what I missed already. But as you all know, that I work on Wedgwood community mainly, and then the rest of the Somali community here. What I understand is that what Lisa said about the dope and everything in the neighborhood, we are working on Wedgwood right now, so there are 3 main things that we have pinpoint that we have to address in next 6 months as soon as we can is better. Of course, safety of youth and neighbors and people who want to report but they are not reporting, who was shooting, who is doing drug dealing and all kind of things. And then we have the cleanliness of the building is a huge issue there. And then you have this issue of putting the youth in the program. So the parents have agreed that they want to make sure that whatever programs we are bringing in the neighborhood, they will register their children. And if they don't, then they have no rights to complain and call the mayor or call the police and call everybody if they are not putting their children in the program. What I understand for this whole thing, that the discussion is, I mean, all of this population that I'm talking about is the population that didn't even go to schools. Most of the parents never went to school, so they don't even understand. And then our struggle right now is to make sure that they feel comfortable when their children are going to Wedgwood Middle School or Econ Elementary School, that they feel comfortable, they start participating in the PTOs and all other things. So I think for this purpose, organizations like ours and Muslim parents or Somali parents like ours who are educated need to be partnered. We have to be leading the program from the city side, and the forums, and this kind of forum, as I said and I talked last time, is that we have to have this forum in Wedgwood or in River Point, another neighborhood, and exclusively where we bring people, we bring interpreter, because many of these children are going to daycares. I know that because they are already funded. These are subsidized housing, so their children are also eligible for going to daycare for free, and they do. But then there is no sense of the quality of the daycare. As I said last time, that children are just given the devices and they are playing video games all day long, and they are being addicted to these games or these devices now. So I think what needs to happen on that side, and it's a huge population in Hilltop, that and I said it last time too, that I can take lead, and I'm very, very confident that if we educate kids and if we educate parents there, Somali community mainly is more tribal community. So if one family does it, you mean that 10 families will do it. And that's how it works, literally. And if you have the chief, I mean, I just had a meeting, organized a meeting with the police department, the chief of Bantu tribe and other people, and it's simple. If the chief is saying it and he is convinced, it's going to happen. So what we need to do for ethnic community is that reach out to people, how it works, understand the community, and then reach out to the community with that, and we will be successful. And I'm very confident that we will be.
Thank you very much. There's several essential points there, and I think one of them, and this gets back to Ernest Perry's point about their mistakes in Allentown, is to make sure that when you launch something that's coming from the bottom up and not the top down, that it's utilizing the people in the neighborhoods who know the neighborhoods, who have done the work, who have the contacts. In your case, the Somali community, because you know how to reach your own folks, So I'm sure that'll be incorporated into the recommendations to the mayor. Thank you.
I just want to add a quick piece. It sounds like there's, and I keep thinking about the schools in Baltimore, and we're seeing it in Cincinnati that became whole schools. So a family could come and they could receive whatever resources they would need to connected to, and also their child go to school. So it would be nice to see maybe we have resources within the city. So we have connectors through Celebrate One that are located at the YMCA or at Shalom Zone, and if they could volunteer time and connect with some of the daycare centers and say, hey, on Tuesday we'll have a connector here and she's going to give information regarding job employment. We have COIC expanding that reach and just making sure that some of these resources are available and that folks know, and if it's job employment or whatever the focus is, because you guys are the influencers for the community and folks take that word. Who's going to give a better recommendation than your own neighbor? So.
Thank you. Yeah, at the summit that we had in this room back on September 9th, we had a presentation, as you know, on Celebrate One and the lessons learned in going, neighborhood to neighborhood, door to door, in outreach, and I think some replication of one sort or another of that is probably going to be part of what we have to do here.
I have a
Yes, sir.
question. Churches, are they a potential source of promoting this issue? Well, That doesn't seem too hard to organize.
So they're definitely partners in the work.
Jane, Matt, and Rhonda, do we want to talk any more about Step Up to Quality? Do we want to, flesh it out a little bit more to make sure that we're all understanding, what that program is all about? I know a lot of people here know it because you're staring it in the face, but for those of you who don't, I mean, Step Up to Quality ratings, as the slide indicates, will be tied to funding by 2020, so it's just around the corner, a little 2 years plus. And Matt or Jane, do you want to relieve John and I of the burden of giving a short tutorial on Step Up to Quality?
Thank you. And actually, I'd like to go to this lady's comment earlier about that she had full slots. And one of the goals we're trying to do is make sure every slot is filled. But you take it a step further, what we want to do is make sure every kid is enrolled in a center that is rated at least 3 stars and above in Step Up to Quality. So that's what I know as the city, our program, we won't partner with a provider that's not at least 3 stars and above in the state Step Up to Quality standard. And we've heard from a lot of people here, it says it's very difficult to get stars. And it is, and we are working, the city is working to try to help our providers get stepped up in a few different avenues. But as you can see, there's several categories as to what Step Up is and what you have to do to get stars. I don't know, Jan, do you want to walk through Step Up? It is a complicated matrix.
It is complicated. Gee, thanks. It is very complicated, and I'm going to pass the baton to Nicole because Nicole has done this. And not only, I think those are very important bullet points. I would change certified teachers to qualified teachers because our folks do not have the credentials in general to teach in a school district, at least beginning. So we want teachers with 4-year degrees in early childhood education who understand developmentally appropriate practice and understand what 3-, and 4-, and 5-year-old children should be able to do. So I think that Step Up's like an onion, and it has just a bazillion layers, and it's difficult. Not only is it difficult to get rated, it's difficult to stay rated. If you have, for example, 2 or 3 serious risk non-compliances, you could potentially lose your stars. And you've got a time frame under which you can reapply, do corrective actions. So you're not guaranteed to keep your stars. You have to keep the work up, which is a wonderful thing. It's a very good thing. I am going to turn this over to Nicole because she's had to do this from the ground up to high star levels. What I would also ask is that we're very careful in understanding that the July 1, 2020 deadline, which is looming, 18, however many months that is, centers can still serve children, but they can't serve publicly funded children. So the message I would ask us to consider is this. The message needs to be to the consumers, to the parents. Unfortunately, many of the folks whose children are going to need to be in centers in July 1, 2020 haven't had those babies yet. They're not thinking about this. So when we think about to whom do we market, we need to market to folks who currently do have those infants and toddlers, but the marketing has to be continual because folks are always going to be, we're going to be having those babies. I would also ask us to remember that it can take a long time to get star rated. It's not as easy as filling out a checklist and saying, let's submit this to the state. So there's some programs that Action for Children TA specialists have worked with for over 8 years, and they still can't get there. So when we talk about commitment and the ability to do this, you can have all your ducks lined up and a teacher, your qualified teacher, not show up and quit. You cannot apply for your star. So it's not a one and done and easy thing. So with that, let me pass it to Nicole.
Can I jump in real quick? Sorry. When we made this slide, we took all the categories from Step Up to Quality, and those of you who work in this field have seen the matrix. And we just kind of generalized the topics. We wanted to make it basically, Z topics but generalized, easy to understand. So we said certified teachers. We were thinking CDA as opposed to qualified.
And those are all very important and I think helpful for folks to understand who aren't in the field.
And to your point, real quick to apologize, to your point about the providers, the deadline only affects families who are eligible for PFCC. Those are our poorest kids.
Right.
So, our providers have to understand that if they lose the ability to serve the children whose families are eligible for PFCC, when I think about this, sorry everybody, I don't think about the providers, I think about the kids. So those providers won't be able to serve those children, so where will those children be and how will they learn? So.
What was the question?
Mike.
So we started, we set a goal for both locations. We said we're going to get one. We got the one. We said, okay, we're both going to get 3. When we went for the 3 at one location, it was fine. The other location, I had 22 teachers. So trying to get those 22 teachers in all these trainings so that we could hit a 3 and keep them same teachers by the time they came for inspection and hope that they showed up that day was the tricky part. So like I was saying, I was telling her, I said, maybe if they could find a way to not say by 2020 you're not going to service PFCC kids, maybe they should push, we're going to help you make your center better. So you can have something to brag about, so you can feel comfortable about when the children come in. It's almost like a punishment. If you don't do this, you can't serve these kids. When in reality, we need everybody to do it so that the kids can be learning, so we can know what's irritating behavior and what's developmentally appropriate. Because that's the problem.
So,
Microphone.
Sorry. I think some places are starting to come around a little bit. I know that the city, Director Johnson, has had several programs where we're looking at our providers and trying to help figure out what our providers need and help them get what they need. So let me ask you a question. Like the 22 teachers that you had, what did they need? What was their education level? What did you need to help?
I'm going to just be real blunt and honest. This Hilltop is a whole different ballpark. And when you got kids kicking you, spitting you, parents calling you bitches, it changes your whole mentality about teaching. It is hard to teach a kid that kicks and spits and hits you, and we try to send you through the referral process to Columbus Post Special Needs Preschool, and it takes 6 months. It is difficult for these teachers to be like, okay, I'm going to be 11, but your mom cusses me out every day when I pick it up because I mentioned to you, you're late. This is your time that you're supposed to pick up your kids and drop them off. The staff, there's not enough teachers in Columbus, Ohio. I think personally, how y'all are going to pull off by 2020 everybody being star rated with 50% of your teachers having a degree? It's going to be extremely difficult if you don't start finding a way to train these teachers and get them an associate. Like a CDA is great. I'm all for it. However, a CDA does not qualify you to be a lead teacher for 7. And if they're working full-time, how do they go to school full-time too and be pleasant when you're at work?
And so to you, was that your biggest challenge then for getting your 3rd star is staff qualifications?
And just finding the time to be able to say, hey, this is how you fill out a development or learning needs. This is how you align it with the standards. I can't pull you out of the classroom and talk to you for 2 hours and try to show you what we need to be doing and pay somebody else to come in there. It's difficult. Like, it is extremely difficult. We can't close. My parents did.
CEO when we go for CEO. Because they have to go to work.
Would your students, and I understand, would your staff, your staff, attend the training on Saturday or in the evening after work?
It depends. I have some staff that'll go to every free training that you sign them up for. I have some that, I mean, I work another job, so if you can't pay me, I can't go. You know, I only have a CDA. I'm only paying you $12 an hour at the max. They have families too, so it gets really, really difficult. I mean, like, you have to create this volume that's crazy. And until we can get every employee to buy in, you can almost forget it.
This lady?
It's twofold now. As she was talking, because I've worked in both. I've worked in Head Start and I've worked into, like I said, Bright Horizons. There's a huge difference in the kids and the makeup. And, you know, I came from a class, half of my class had IEPs. You know, there's 2 teachers, we have behavior problems, you know, kids running out of the gate, kids jumping over fences, parents showing up late, you know, kids cussing. So, I mean, it's a different makeup. It's tough. And if you don't know how to teach or if you don't have that training, you can't handle it. Like, you can't. There's teachers that couldn't handle that type of atmosphere because they didn't go to school. They didn't have the experience. They didn't have the patience. And when you have multiple children like that, it's hard. So one of my questions is it might be for you or whoever, because I believe in the step up to quality and NACE accredited and all that stuff like that. However, it doesn't, like she was saying, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a great center just because they have it, because you can achieve that and get that go and be a horrible center with horrible teachers. And you can put that show on for when they have that licensing. You know, the center that I worked at, I'm just saying that you don't have to be a good center to have that rating. I worked at Bright Horizons, and we had word of mouth. We had full classes all the time. We didn't have 3 stars, but we worked on like a 3-star. You know, our ratios were like an NACE accreditation, so we act like we had it, but we didn't actually have it, but we still had a whole bunch of kids. Now our center was different. So I guess my question is, should our goal be more geared towards helping centers, like she was saying, helping centers get to the 3 stars, you know, because like she said, there are probably a lot of centers that may want to get that, but they can't afford it, or issues that are coming up, and giving those teachers that education that they need to be a great center without necessarily the star quality, because you can have that star quality and be a horrible center. Like, you know, you can have incidents of abuse and things like that and be like the best, you know, have step 5, you know, stars or whatever. So is there going to be another way that we could handle that in pushing more centers to educate them, even if they don't have the stars, you know, supporting them to get there, you know, because waiting until they get to 3 stars, what if they don't make it to 3 stars? But they really would. They're pushing towards it and they're providing these trainings for their kids. You know, should we really be limiting the resources to helping people that want to actually start something that's needed on the Hilltop area?
And I think the opposite of what you said is true too. We have a lot of, and we talk about this in our office a lot, is we think we have a lot of providers in the community who are fabulous, very high quality programs. They're just not rated. So how do we help them get rated and immediately receive a good star quality rating? I think that's a good question as well. So I know Director Johnson is leading the city's effort to help our providers increase the quality of their programs. She was a teacher for a very long time, so she understands the issues our teachers have. One of the things the city is doing right now is we have contracted with Columbus State Community College to do free CDA trainings for 100 existing teachers in the Hilltop. And then we're also working with Action for Children to do something additional to that too. So we look at it as our responsibility of helping our providers get stepped up.
Like, and you guys do it because as a home child care provider, I do get a lot of emails saying, hey, step up, these things are offered to you to do complete calls from Columbus State, hey, you got the grant going on, which is very, you know, informative, let me know, and I feel like y'all doing our part. And as providers, it's up to us to complete these things. Like, you know, it's not up to you to hold my hand through the whole process. I'm an adult, and if I want my center, my business, I'm going to complete that, if that's what.
But we do know that our providers, as you all know, you're so busy with your day-to-day jobs. I mean, if you're a center director, you're also substitute teaching, you're probably cooking the meal, you're driving the bus, you're doing a lot of things. So, I mean, you know, we'd like to help you as much as we can, and I know that you need it. what also I think would be helpful to us is to know what you need. Every center, I think, is different in the needs that you have. It's hard for us to help you without knowing exactly what you need to achieve Step Up. So having some type of an inventory or a matrix of who needs what would help us figure out how to help you.
Lisa?
How about having a forum? How about a forum and a resource fair for all the providers on the Hilltop? A big day, a big like community day, a huge forum, kind of like night out, like National Night Out, but have a big, because we have resources for National Night Out. I mean, we'd celebrate one at National Night Out. We, have a resource fair at a central location on the Hilltop and invite all of the providers and parents, all in one place.
Yeah, with follow-up, obviously.
Can I ask, how many providers are here tonight? And you know what I'm about to say. If all the centers is here on the west side, it doesn't make any sense that only a few providers are here. What is wrong? That is one of the main problems. What is wrong that none of these all the providers that we have on this west side, why aren't they here? That is one of our main problems. Until we get them out here and get them involved, this problem will not be resolved.
I think a lot of people, providers didn't know. Because I came that Saturday.
Yeah, they know.
We didn't receive it because we moved. So a lot of providers don't know because I tell people they come. I told my sister, she came. I think I emailed a couple other people, they know, but we weren't
It would be nice to have more, it would always be nice to have more here and to have a more filled room. Although this room is pretty full, and I would prefer to look at the cup as half full rather than half empty. And I think we have the critical mass here, to start something. Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, call us out on it. If you know somebody that ain't here, and you work, I told my sister, did you want to come today? She came, she's probably tired too. But sometimes you just got to talk about it a little bit, like, and bring it up. And like I said, I brag to everybody. I be so excited. Oh yeah, we got 4, we got 3. I'm so excited that this is my journey. But everybody, you got to feel some buy-in for people. Like, it's like don't keep trying to punish folks when they can't get stuff done and say, hey, what happened? Like you said, what do you need? I know I need that.
Matt, we have Bill over here.
If you get us some insurance, let me know. If we can get some of that City of Columbus insurance from my employees, make sure I can hire some people. It would really, really help. I always ask when someone doesn't accept a job from me, I always call them back and say, hey, can I just ask you why didn't you take the job? And they're like, your insurance. You don't got no insurance. You don't have no insurance. Can't afford it. For a small business, it's ridiculous for us. So that's it's a teacher thing. Yeah. If y'all can help us with that.
Have you tried to come to the Business Bureau, or not the Chamber of Commerce? Because they have things for small businesses where they help with insurance.
Yeah, and we tried it, but when they have to pay $300 a month, and you only making $11, it just doesn't add up.
One thing that would help me get to my 3 stars, and we're trying to get another center per se on the Hilltop, but what helped me is if there's Ohio crew training directly for directors and for centers to show us. I mean, yes, we have a Step Up line, we have Action for Children, yes, that's awesome, but if there's a Ohio crew training that you can get us in to show us exactly how to get to those 3 stars. I mean, I can't even partner with you because I haven't got to that 3, but I want to be there. I might have it, like I said, I don't have a staff. I don't have degree teachers. I went through the CBA class myself, that was offered. I just graduated from it. So at the end of the day, that was awesome. Yeah, thanks. But, at the end of the day, that still doesn't help me because I'm not a degree teacher. I'm so far away. I need this many credits. So again, it's the teacher aspect. We need to help with finding the qualified teachers that can handle the social and emotional aspect of the children and behavior issues. We need help with that. It's major.
Could she partner with OSU?
But I cannot partner because I'm not a 3-star center.
Oh,
You
is
know,
that how,
so, and that's how it works, you know, with us being there and trying to get there. That's my goal, don't get me wrong. But again, if there was something there to help me boost me up, I'm not afraid of step up equality. It's just I can't get there. I don't have the right staff. I don't have, somebody might quit on me tomorrow, you know, I don't know that. Because there is so many centers in Columbus, and they feel like they can jump and go to these centers. They don't have to do this here. But I do. I want quality center, and I want 3 stars. I want 5. You know,
You should call Action for Change.
I work very closely with very closely. But at the end of the day, you know, they give me as much assistance as possible, but, you know, they might be able to give me a little bit more. You know what I mean? You know, so you want to, I want to know what that is and what we have to offer, because we do want to give quality care. That's our passion. So
Thank you.
between providers, those who have been in the field or who have helped. I mean, brown bags help by all means. You know, like I said, Actions for Children has been my go-to since, you know, we've been in the field. But like you said, a mentoring program, someone who actually has went through it as well, would be beneficial to me. So I have a lot of questions.
Well, I think Jane earlier indicated that that's definitely going to be part of a recommendation. So we've heard that loud and clear. So thank you, Bill.
As a non-provider myself here, I'm just as a citizen born and raised out here in the Hilltop. These sessions have been informative for me as just as a citizen to know what's going on out here in the Hilltop community that you don't read about and you don't hear about, the problems that the teachers have. I've always known that teachers have had a problem, but the only problem I've heard is out of the high schools, that you didn't want to be a teacher in a high school with the way students are today. I wasn't aware with preschool children how they acted. So this has been a real session for me, and I believe yeah, it's definitely a wake-up call. I believe with what Lisa said, maybe we could have a forum for all the providers here around to notify the public that they have a chance to meet those providers out here in the Hilltop. Bring your children. Bring your children. And I think that would be one good thing that would be a step forward for this program.
Thank you, Bill. We're going to maybe, if there's, move into the final segment of our discussion. This has been extremely valuable. Those of us who are not career educators like Bill and John and me and a number of us, Lisa, I mean, we've learned a ton, and the more I've learned, the more I think this is quite a Rubik's Cube that we're challenged with. But the commitment is here, clearly in this room. The commitment is here to work on that Rubik's Cube, you know, week by week, month by month, year by year, and to move that thing. So thank you for your passion and commitment. Our last mop-up slide, if you will, which starts with this quote from Andy Douglas, one of our parents. She was kind of prescient and almost anticipating the themes that would come out tonight. The first word is safety, you know, on that slide. Safety, affordability, location are showstoppers. So if you don't have those, you can't go any further to even ask if the program has quality. So rest assured, John and I are not Einsteins up here, but we know that safety and location and proximity will definitely be part of those recommendations going to the mayor. But this is our opportunity in the last few minutes we have here tonight to maybe emphasize some points that have gone underestimated, or to reinforce a point if it needs to be reinforced, or to tell us where we're missing the boat, or to just you know, finalize a theme that's very important to you as we work on refining and editing these recommendations that will go into this report that will land on the mayor's desk. Final thoughts, recommendations, pot shots, whatever you've got in your bag.
One of the things that might help is, because one of the problems is getting quality staff, is to have a consortium, because a lot of small businesses do that, where they can buy into health insurance as a group to where it can be lowered as the price, instead of being rated as your individual company, it rates the whole community as a whole. So that might be able to help just the centers itself get rated as a step-up center.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Is this like how PTOs have the same thing? Because I was in Head City PTO president, and we had the insurance was through the school board or the city schools will actually we have a combined insurance.
So we would just pay the share and then we were covered, because PTOs also do activities and we do need insurances. I think that's a great idea, something like that might help everybody. So city should look into it.
Thank you, Meredith. I'm going to pick on you. You've been part of this program since the outset, and at the Schlom Zone, I mean, you are at the center of a lot of these problems and issues we've been talking about tonight. So you have some thoughts for us before we wrap up tonight?
I just want to lift up the thing that I keep hearing people say. I've read some of the literature that the city provided to us from some of the conversations that Celebrate One has been having in the neighborhood. This conversation and some others that I've participated in with a few of you all. We keep talking about centers. We keep talking about hubs of wraparound services. So I find that interesting that that is a recurring theme that's been heard at least the last 2 years. So I thought that was interesting, and I wonder if that's something we should be pondering.
It sounds like you endorse the concept. Thank you. Do we want some final words from our sponsor to wrap up, Rhonda?
There are cards on the table. It says, tell us your big idea, but actually what I want you to do is to tell the mayor your big idea about how to solve this problem or how to make sure that we get more kids enrolled. And you can take it from any perspective you like, whether you're a provider, you're a parent, or you're a community member. If there's one thing that you could tell the mayor, it could be safety, like get rid of, it could be jobs, whatever it is. So if you'll take the card and fill it out, tell the mayor what you want him to do about this.
We want to thank you for your commitment and your participation. Just so you'll know about our timetable, there will be one-on-one meetings with the working group members throughout the month of October to continue refining your thoughts and recommendations. And then recommendations to the working group are slated for November 28th. So by December, we hope to have a report on the mayor's desk, and you are a very, very important part of making that happen. So thank you very much. We want to thank you for what you've done so far, but we especially want to thank you for what we know you're going to do for us and your community in the weeks and months to come. Thank you very much.